Good afternoon and welcome everyone to Virtual Digital Dealer, to my presentation, Lessons from the COVID Crisis. My name is Kevin Fry and I'm the Marketing Director of the Jeff Weiler Automotive family, one of our nation's top 50 dealership groups. And I'm thrilled to spend some time with you, but I must share first, there is nothing I enjoy more about Digital Dealer than the networking and meeting with great people like each one of you. I miss all of you, and I'm already looking forward to the next conference where we can get together in person. But with all that said, I also want to share some valuable lessons with you today of what we've learned across the last 4, 5, 6 months. I know you have probably heard this quote over and over again since mid-March. And that has been this: never waste a good crisis. And being the history buff I am, I've got to point out who originated that quote is the guy in the picture, Winston Churchill. And it drives me crazy because I've seen so many people claim this quote as their own in recent months. But the reality is that this crisis has been an opportunity for each one of us to rise up and to become better. Call it seeing the glass half full, whatever the case may be. But there are good things that come out of rough times like this. And in my session today, I want to share some of the things we've learned in 3 primary areas. One being is how to make the right decisions during a challenging time like this. The second, and the big one I've had the most questions on, is digital retailing. And finally is where and how much to spend with your invaluable marketing dollars. As a dealer in the front lines, I promise you I'm going to give you some straight advice. I'm going to differ with a lot of people you might be hearing from, but I'm always going to be transparent, which I think is of the greatest value to you. So let's look historically of how we as dealers respond during a crisis. And I would imagine many of you attending today were around in late 2008 and early 2009 when we had a very heavy recession. What was our response during that time? Well, for the most part, dealers cut back their spending, especially marketing dollars. And ultimately, what they were trying to do is to conserve cash during difficult times to ensure they meet the cash flow needs of the business day to day, week to week, and month to month. And why? Why is that the way we respond to situations like this? Well, this spring was a good example. I want you to think about this. New car inventory. The more new car inventory you carry on the lot, the higher your floor loan cost. That is money just sitting out there in the asphalt. And when you're trying to conserve cash, you don't want to have as much inventory out there. Dealers in early April didn't want to take large allocations of inventory, tie up invaluable dollars. In hindsight, I guarantee many dealers wish they had taken some heavy allocation, and you got to remember, late March, early April, we didn't see the demand that was going to be there for car sales. Next, on used car inventory. When the values drop of that used car inventory, you lose money. What was winners one week now become losers the next week. And we saw that this spring with a dramatic drop in used car values. And in many dealers, in response, started selling off their used car inventory as rapidly as possible so they could take the loss, get right into more new used inventory, and try and take off from there. But let me promise you this. In times of uncertainty, cash is certain. And that is what has been driving most of the decisions made during a crisis like this. And most of those decisions are very sound business decisions. So let's look at decision making before COVID. And I'm going to be looking primarily from the marketing side. And year to year, this is typically what we do. We set an annual marketing plan. And we have an idea of seasonality. We're probably going to spend less in January and February when things are slow. We're going to start ramping up spend in March, April, May as we see the tax refunds come in, etc. And then after we put that plan in place, We monitor the performance month by month. We meet with our valued partners. We look at our internal analytics. We see how things are performing, and then we will make some small adjustments as needed. And then for many of you that are attending today, perhaps you attend a conference like Digital Dealer and you meet with some new providers, and you might mix in some new marketing solutions to your mix to try out. But what happens when you go into a crisis situation like the pandemic we saw this spring in mid-March? Well, I'm going to tell you that when you get into a crisis situation, a challenge like this, everything focuses on the short term. And rather than making decisions every 30 days or every 6 months, whatever the case may be, you need to be evaluating the information you have in front of you each day to make decisions in the short term. I'm talking on a daily basis. And I'm going to walk you through some examples of how we did that. You need to make aggressive decisions on a daily basis, responding quickly, whether it's in a positive or negative way, to address this and come out. So I'm going to give you, and you might find this simple, 2 key performance metrics that you should measure in a situation like this. And this is something we met on each day. We began each day here at the Jeff Wyler Automotive family with our marketing department. And number 1 is to take a look at your website traffic, because what you are looking to see is the demand that is out there, okay? So what we're looking at is the month to date in the most recent day website traffic compared to the previous year to get an idea of how much shopping activity is going on out there to measure the demand. But there's one more important metric, and once again, this one is simple, that you need to match this up against. And that's going to be your showroom visits. Because there's a difference between shopping demand and activity versus the actual action of coming in to purchase a car. And you should be able to readily pull your showroom visits activity from your CRM tool, and you can compare that, similar to the website traffic, to what you had the previous year. And with that information in hand, you need to be positioned to respond quickly and aggressively based upon the information in front of you to make decisions that best serve your dealership. One of the advantages of being a fellow dealer out there is that I can share with you actual examples of what we saw this spring and how we found great success in a challenging market. And let's take a look. So I'm going to give you a quick case study, and this is looking at the month of April this year, showing you our website traffic through April 13th. That dark blue line was the 2020 traffic versus our traffic 2019 last year. And you can see we were down 15% with our shopping activity online for basically the first half of the month. In fact, if you look at April 5th there, that was the lowest point of the year that we had in website traffic. If I look at our showroom visits, wow, what a tremendous difference. Our showroom visits for that time span were down 44%. So let's think about this. Remember, shopper demand, website activity was down 15%, but the actual showroom visits were down 44%. Why were they down so much lower? Well, demand was lower, but activity is much lower because of COVID. We operate in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana, and we had a couple things going on here. With COVID, early on, people were uncertain about their safety if they were to visit the dealership, which meant less dealership visits. And the other part was one of our states, Kentucky, was required to have their showrooms closed, which contributed to lower showroom visits as well. So remember, we're tracking this activity day by day, and let me show you what happens next. So now I've got the month to date here, but notice after April 13th, I see my shopper demand return and start exceeding what we saw the previous year. And I've got a blue mark there. Low point of the year was on April 5th. That's important to identify as well. And now all of a sudden, our website, our shopper demand increases after April 13th for the rest of the month, up 10%. Let's take a look at our showroom visits. If I look at that same date, the 14th, 13th, 14th, you'll notice with where the arrow is, suddenly our showroom visits get back to where they were with no COVID the previous year and continue on that way pretty much for the rest of the month. In fact, we were essentially even the latter part of April. So what happened here? What did we identify that was very important? Well, the answer is in the bottom right there. It was the stimulus checks. We were able to see in mid-April when stimulus checks, the first round, started reaching people in the market, that shopper demand started going up, and then showroom visits started following, that people wanted to go out and buy cars. Because we were monitoring our KPIs daily and measuring demand and seeing the traffic, we were able to see this information immediately, and most important, we identified why it was happening, the stimulus checks, and we decisively and aggressively responded by spending on marketing while others cut. Let me explain. The majority of dealers out there had cut their marketing spend. Many went completely dark. And because they weren't monitoring day by day to make aggressive decisions, they were dark the rest of the month, at least through April, if not through May, because they were being ultra conservative. They failed to see the opportunity that became available because of the stimulus checks. We not only were able to see it, we were able to respond immediately. Within 24 hours, we had a full campaign marketing into this. And rather than taking a bloodbath in April, we turned a horrible month into a fair month to follow on with record months in May and June. So now let's talk about what's been the most popular topic through this that I've got questions about, and that is digital retailing. Did you know that before the pandemic started, only about 1 in 4 dealers had a digital retailing solution in place? Now, with the Jeff Wyler Automotive family, we take pride in being innovators. We were one of the earliest people. We were the first in the Midwest with digital retailing. We had over a 3-year head start. And I'll tell you now that during the pandemic, we have been ranked #1 in the nation with our digital retailing tool, which is a Cox Automotive tool. We've done phenomenally well, and I'm going to share with you some of the lessons and successes we learned. But I want to emphasize something. We are still learning. If you've been to my presentations before, I emphasize again and again, if you want to lead, you have to remain humble. And I'm here today humble because inasmuch as we saw great success during this pandemic, we also found a lot of shortcomings of things we can improve on, and I'm going to share those with you. So let me share some of the pros, some of the positives we had. If you look at this, and this goes through July, our digital retailing leads, we call our tool Wyler Direct, have been up 140% through July. And as of today, they're actually up even more. And where is the spike? The spike begins right with the pandemic, where people really started engaging with our digital retailing tool. We have had record home deliveries. I know of nobody else that's had more home deliveries than us here in the states we operate in, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. And I'm going to share with you that while we had record home deliveries, the majority of our deliveries were still in person at the dealership. I'm going to share some more about that, and that might surprise some of you, but that is definitely something you understand. Internal adoption. Here's something a lot of people haven't thought about. One of the pros of this pandemic has been that it has been a 10 times amplifier of the adoption by consumers of our digital retailing tools online. Because with showrooms closed in many states, they had no other choice on their path to purchase a vehicle than to engage with your digital retailing tool. I want you to take a second and think about the first time you ever bought something online. For some of you, it might have been eBay. For some of you, it might have been Amazon. And I'm sure you were worried, putting your credit card information in there. Would you get overcharged? Would you get what you actually paid for? And then you found that after you did 1 to 2 transactions that you were comfortable with it. And I'm certain all of you purchase from Amazon all the time, every day. The same thing happens with automotive digital retailing tools. Once a consumer engages with it and sees how friendly and friction-free it is, they're more likely to use it in the future. But note my slide says internal adoption. The biggest pro that we saw out of this, and I'm telling you that even with a 3+ year head start, is that your biggest challenge when you bring on a digital retailing tool is going to be the people at your dealership or dealerships. Salespeople and sales managers that resist a new tool that's different than the way they've always done things. We had an even greater embracement of Weiler Direct during this process because our consumers had no other choice. Our salespeople had no other choice. And the great news is with that 3-year head start, we were already operating it pretty smoothly. How about the money side? Everybody asked me about this. We have consistently seen a 20% higher gross per unit on these digital retailing deals. But I want to emphasize something here because I certainly understand the higher margin market we've been in the last few months. We saw the same higher gross per unit pre-COVID as we did through it. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. People will pay a premium for convenience. And this is another great reason why you should be embracing a digital retailing tool, especially in a market that up until this late spring has been declining margins and has been very difficult. Let's talk about some of the things that were a challenge or perhaps didn't work out the way we thought. So I want you to understand that even with this record digital retailing traffic, the majority of our digital retailing deals still took place in the showroom. And I want to share with you something, a very interesting part of this as well, because we have Ohio separated by the Ohio River in Kentucky, where the governor mandated that showrooms must be closed. You remember I told you around April 13th and 14th, we saw the stimulus checks coming out, shopper activity, demand increased, and showroom activity jumped. One of the interesting patterns we saw is that customers in Kentucky were crossing the river to buy in Ohio. Why? The simple answer is because the showrooms were closed in Kentucky. And at the end of the day, the majority of these people still want to complete their purchasing transaction with a test drive of the vehicle and an in-person delivery at the dealership. I've said it before, I'll say it again, and it has proved itself out here in this case. Dealers have a tremendous role in the future of automotive digital retailing. And even in a situation like the pandemic, yes, digital retailing gives us the tools to do at-home deliveries and more, but the majority of our shoppers still want to purchase that car and complete the transaction at the dealership. On this one, I know I'm going to differ with people, but I'm going to tell you, we did not find efficiency with digital retailing deals. I know there's a lot of our great value providers out there preaching that this is a much more efficient way to sell cars, and there's some dealers that said they experienced this. That might be the case, but we didn't find it. And I'm going to share why. When you're working, especially to do an at-home delivery, you have an intense amount of preparation work to ensure that everything is negotiated beforehand, that they're absolutely on the right vehicle, you have the right deal in place before you stage everything to go out and meet with the shopper, sign off on the paperwork. We still are required to have a wet signature in some of our operating areas and deliver the vehicle. If you have one thing wrong, a T not crossed, an I not dotted, it might mean another visit back to the dealership to correct some items and to bring it back. But further, the other thing we found, especially with at-home deliveries, is we were taking a sales professional and or an F&I manager out of the showroom for several hours to drive to the location, deliver the vehicle, and finally come back. We did not find labor efficiency. In fact, we found it was more intensive. And this is one of the areas I'm certain that we could improve on in the future. But I'm going to share with you, as a fellow dealer, 100% transparent, that is one of the areas that we did not work out the way that we had hoped. Where else can we improve? Well, F&I absolutely is an area we can get better. I've looked at pretty much every digital retailing tool out there, and I can assure you that the least interacted part with each one of those tools is the F&I menu. And I'm actually perfectly fine with that, because I prefer, whenever possible, that we can do an in-person presentation of the F&I menu. It's a complex area. We want the ability to build value into it. And it's also the last bastion of profitability for us on new cars for the most part. So we want to find out what is the optimal way to present the F&I menu, especially for a home delivery when you come into a situation like COVID. And you see in parentheses, I put hint video. We did this several different ways. I would share with you that the most efficient way, or the most profitable way, was to do a video solution, whether it's a FaceTime or something similar to that. After that, if we couldn't do that, we would send them the menu electronically. The F&I manager would get on the phone and walk them through the menu so that they could build up value, answer questions, which is tremendously important in this complex area. The number one piece of advice I'm going to offer to you in this digital retailing arena, and especially during a crisis like COVID, is this: flexibility is the key to success. And by that I mean this, and we did this across the board, and I'm so proud of our people. If they want to take delivery at the dealership, then we accommodate taking delivery at the dealership, and we make sure they feel safe to set things up. If they want to take delivery at their home, we're going to accommodate that. We're going to set up to do a safe delivery at their home, have everything prepared to be as simple as possible. And finally, if they want a contact-free delivery, we have those as well. We will accommodate that. We will do everything to be as safe as possible and to make sure that the buying experience for our consumer is not surpassed by anyone else. Let me finish with this on digital retailing, especially if you don't have a tool in place. The precedent has been set. What do I mean by that? I believe I would not be surprised at all in the future, if not the near future, that we see a second wave of COVID or some other type of pandemic. And don't fool yourself into thinking that your state won't shut down dealerships again. The precedent has been set. If that happens, the question you need to be asking yourself is, did you make yourself better? Did you get better prepared for the next time this is going to happen? I hope my presentation today is going to help you in that process. All right, this last area is marketing spend, and I assure you that I'm going to be a little bit controversial here too, and differ with a lot of your valued partners have been telling you and some of the consultants, but there's a golden rule on the marketing side that I preach. If you don't have the inventory to support the marketing spend, then you should not be spending. Why would you go out and drop $20,000, $30,000 to promote marketing to sell cars that you don't have? Have you had some inventory struggles the last several months? Of course you have. It's been incredibly challenging. I don't know of a dealer that hasn't struggled with inventory issues. Yet we have people out there saying this is the time to not only go back to your normal marketing spend, but to ramp it up, perhaps even double it, to take advantage of what's going on in the market. Well, here's my answer. Minimal inventory does not justify maximum spend. And I want you to think about this. I bet every one of you, at a minimum, took some type of economics class in high school, right? And you learned about this little thing called supply and demand. So we know our supply, with all the inventory issues, has been very low. Yet we also know the demand has been high since mid-April. It rebounded and we've had strong demand. Why are we seeing record margins with minimal marketing spend? The reason why is this: minimal supply, high demand equals higher prices. Dealers across the country have been experiencing record profitability months. And don't fool yourself. If you don't think that shoppers can see that we have inventory issues, you're kidding yourself. They get online. They look for that, for example, new Chevy Silverado truck in a particular color and trim level, and it doesn't take them too long to shop around online to realize if you're the only dealer in town that has that vehicle. Are they much more likely to pay full MSRP when that's what you're demanding? The answer is yes. The laws of economics do not change. And what dealers have been doing is that they're getting these record profitability months with minimal marketing spend, minimal because they don't have the inventory to support it, and we're coming out ahead. At the end of the day, folks, we're in the business of being profitable. And I don't support these big ramped up marketing spends unless you have the inventory to support it. Well, what's some other things we learned in our marketing spend? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about your traditional pay-per-click, your search engine marketing spend versus your social media marketing spend. Do you know there has been record social media traffic since COVID started? Upwards of 50% or more? Should that surprise you with the amount of people that are not at the office, that are working from their homes? People spending more time on their mobile devices and laptops and desktops on social media. There have been record amounts of traffic. And if you have been marketing on social media, it has been a home run. It has been a tremendous bang for your buck. So let me ask you this. Have you calculated your cost per shopper? I'm probably going to do this as a future session, but I want you to think about it this way. As a marketing director, your goal is to invest your invaluable marketing dollars into some solutions out there to generate engaged shoppers coming into your dealership website, where you hope to convert them into either a phone call, a form, or best an in-store visit, and finally a car purchase. But there is a cost for you for each one of those engaged shoppers that you drive into your website. It could be as simple as the cost per click you're spending on Google SEM. Have you compared that to what the cost of a shopper is from social media or from some of the other solutions? If you haven't, you need to, because I'm here to tell you that social media traffic is significantly cheaper and is as engaged, if not more engaged, than the traditional SEM traffic that you've been purchasing at a high price. Further, many of the direct referral traffic solutions now available are surpassing traditional SEM campaigns for engagement and are 3 to 4 times cheaper at a minimum. I'm just giving you a little bit of a hint of something I'll be speaking about in the future, but this has been one of those other lessons learned, one of these other benefits of going through a crisis like this. So let me wrap up for each one of you. I come from an ex-military background, and one of the first things that we were taught is that whenever you go into a challenging situation where things don't turn out like you thought they were going to, you need to adapt and overcome. Adapt and overcome. And then the next thing they teach is that you must respond quickly and decisively. The same things I opened up with here in the very beginning. And finally, when we get into a crisis situation like this, you want to minimize pain and maximize gain. I love the automotive industry because we're such a resilient bunch, and we rise to the occasion in situations like this. I'm so incredibly proud of the team here at Jeff Weiler because we have done exactly that, and we turned what was looking like a very bad decision or bad situation into something much better and profitable for the entire group. If you have questions, my email is on there, kevin.fry@jeffweiler.com. Thank you so very much. I'm so excited to see you hopefully in the very near future. And from here, let's go ahead and take some questions.